I have a piano, but I don't use it because I can't play the piano to save my life. No, I used to compose at the piano on pencil and paper before we had computers. So now I write at the computer and it's the same thing. I don't even have a piano keyboard at the computer. I just use the computer keyboard and it's just one note at a time. I don't have a melody, I have some kind of a gesture in kind of a sonic gesture. And in this case, I had the choir will sing Agnus Dei in 4 straight quarter notes. Agnus Dei, and it doesn't sound very exciting, but that's the sonic gesture that came into my mind, and I never got away from that. But it was not only just 4 even notes, but they were loud. From that, the very first thing that you're going to hear in the orchestra, I should say the second thing that you hear in the orchestra, is this one long note held by the oboe. And that, for some reason, it just came into my mind. Actually, I'll tell you the reason. It came from the movie Amadeus. When Salieri first comes in, I had that sound in my mind of, after the first kind of cry from the harp, then this oboe just holds, I knew it had to be an oboe. And there's just holding that note out. And then I put the chords in under it, little by little, one note at a time. And then the piece came out from there. So it's not always a melody and usually I have to fight for the melodies really hard. Melody is the most important thing. It is the most important thing. But I have to fight for them, and a lot of times they come later. They very rarely come fully formed. Usually there's a surprise to me along the way. I'll have, the saying, man plans and God laughs. So you go in, you have a plan, and then usually within the very short period of time, the plan is gone and you're going to do something else. My plan in this, when Paul talked to me about writing an Agnus Dei, that would be a quote-unquote completion of the Great Mass of Mozart. Of course, my first thought is, I'm not completing Mozart. I don't want to go anywhere near completing Mozart. And so what I did not want to do, the last thing I wanted to do was to listen to the Mozart Mass in C minor, the Great Mass, and try to get ideas from the Mass and use it in my Agnus Dei. I didn't want to do that at all. But I did kind of soak myself in the music of Mozart from his Mass. And that really inspired me. And so my first idea of not listening to it at all, I completely went 180 degrees and I jumped into his piece and I listened to it and then I put it away. And then I had that sound, and that it was more of an inspiration to kind of get the motor started. So that's what I did. It's really hard with an Agnus Dei because there are very few words. It's only 3 lines. The first line is repeated twice, so 2 of the lines are exactly the same. The third line is mostly the same as the first 2, except it changes just at the end with the Grandes Peace, Dona Nobis Pacem. So there are hardly any words, and to have that sustain for 10-15 minutes was a challenge. And so I really had to kind of slow the clock down for me, and for that, it made this a piece I would not have chosen for an Agnus Dei. I've written an Agnus Dei before for a Mass that's meant for a church service. All the Agnus Deis I know that are for liturgical use are very sweet and very pretty, which is the same thing I did in the Mass that I wrote. The Agnus Dei is like the prettiest thing in the whole Mass. I did not go that direction with this. I slowed it down. It became a cry from the heart, so that the entire piece becomes this cry to God for mercy. And only at the end you get grant us peace, so that the grant us peace really becomes an emotional release. So that the whole thing isn't sweet, which is fine. Lots of people do it, and I did it myself. But so that the whole Agnus Dei becomes actually an emotional turmoil which is then satisfied by the time you get to the end. That was the only way for me to try to make sense out of it for a work of this scope.